Avengers! Assemble.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is chock full of amazing action and set pieces, but that action doesn't just magically appear. A lot of very talented and determined individuals help create all the action scenes and then watch as a team of performers bring those scenes to life. Those stunt doubles and coordinators naturally have many grand tales from their time working on their respective movies, and we're going to reveal the best stories from the set.
I'm Dr. I Can't Walk at the moment.
We all know Tom Holland is Spider-Man. He's lovable, funny, and very comic book accurate. As such, he's become a fan favorite. But despite Holland's experience with gymnastics, he's not Spider-Man when bringing those action scenes to life. That particular honor goes to Marvin Ross. The responsibility of becoming Spider-Man was Ross's second role in the MCU. But despite this and his professionalism, he ended up finding his inner child a bit when it came down to becoming Spidey. He would go in front of the mirror in full costume and try out new Spidey poses. He would work on the hunch he has while crouched, hand movements, and head jerks. While at airport security, he'd grin knowing his job was a secret identity situation. While on the set of Civil War, Ross recalled the airport scene. He talked about the duel Spidey had with Cap and a stunt which was made with a dead man line. When Spidey hit the ground, Ross hit the ground so hard that he couldn't move on the first take. He was reminded that he was supposed to be playing Spider-Man, not playing dead. When it comes to the life of a stunt double, usually it involves being thrown around and getting into fights. Sam Hargrave, who directs Netflix's Extraction, got to go above and beyond and not just work as a stunt double, but also operate as a stunt coordinator and second unit director. So he wasn't just in charge of concepting some of the action scenes, but also brought them to life. None would be more epic or memorable than working on the battle for Wakanda in Infinity War. Sam would team up with his brother Daniel, who was in the shoes of Captain America, and he had a whole army of stunt doubles at his disposal. Many of the stunt doubles were his friends and peers that we'll see in this list, so the whole experience likely didn't feel like work for Hargrave. Wakanda may look like Africa in the movie, but the real Wakanda in Infinity War is actually Georgia. Hargrave marveled, no pun intended, at how the designers were able to turn a horse pasture into another country, complete with trees and rivers. The scale of it and being able to work with friends and family made this experience so memorable for Hargrave. With all the CGI it took to bring Iron Man to life, you wouldn't think Robert Downey Jr. would need a stunt double. That's where you're wrong, however, as stuntman Glenn Foster helped bring Iron Man to life on the big screen. Foster started working on Iron Man 2 and likens the experience to a childhood feeling he had. When they put Iron Man's helmet on his head, he said he felt like a kid again who used to put Darth Vader's helmet on and realized his childhood moment was coming to life with a Marvel twist. Foster noted how mechanical Iron Man's movements had to be compared to Tony's and stated earlier suit designs forced that limitation. While Iron Man 3 offered the craziest stunts, it was Endgame that was the highlight of his career, and it wasn't even a stunt. The scenes with Downey Jr. as a SWAT officer were actually of Foster. He got to actually act alongside Robert Redford. Downey Jr.'s close-up shots were filmed and inserted later on. Gui Da Silva is perhaps best known in the stunt community as Chadwick Boseman's stunt double, but his first rodeo in the MCU was actually as one of the goons Cap mops the floor with in the elevator scene in Winter Soldier. You'll be hard-pressed to find him though, as Da Silva admits he was knocked out of the scene fairly early on, when the elevator is at its most crowded. He was placed on top of a large fellow named Bubba, and since he was out early and couldn't actually move, he actually started napping on set. He had a lot of fun in Civil War doubling as Black Panther, especially during the airport scene. He got to spar against his friend Kyle MacLeod, who was doubling for Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye. When fighting against Winter Soldier during the airport scene, Sebastian Stan, not a stunt double, actually uppercut him in the face by accident. But none of that brought tears to his eyes. What did though was seeing everyone decked out in costumes on the tarmac set. His fellow stuntman James Young, who was Sebastian's double, told him he was lucky he was wearing a mask. We talked about how Sam and Daniel Hargrave got to fight each other on the set of Endgame, but how did Daniel get his start in the MCU? The story is actually rather amusing. Sam had been working as Chris Evans' stunt double on Avengers and Winter Soldier, but photography had finished and Sam had started regrowing his signature epic beard as he began working on the Hunger Games. But duty called once more for Captain America, and reshoots were needed. Sam, however, didn't want to shave his beard. Daniel had yet to work on an MCU film and was tossed in to fill in for his brother, who had a working relationship with Chris Evans. So there were some big shoes to fill, so to speak. Thankfully, Daniel impressed and would go on to double for Chris Evans in Infinity War and Endgame. Being part of Endgame, he was involved in the Trinity fight against Thanos and still gets chills when Cap lifts Thor's hammer, even as a viewer. I mean, who wouldn't? Goosebumps over here. Doing the job of a stunt double is plenty work to begin with, but when you add stunt coordinator and assistant stunt coordinator to your duties, you have your hands full. That's exactly what Monique Ganderton had to contend with when working on the final 2 Avengers films. She had to get up at 2 a.m. in order to do hair and makeup in order to be ready for work by 6 a.m. Then it's a 15-hour workday, then another hour and a half to remove the makeup. Ganderton wasn't too upset with this though. She doubled for Mystique in X-Men 3 and stated that was much more makeup and thus much more time. She also helped bring the fights to life. The opening fight scene in Infinity War between Thanos and Hulk was entirely her design. In fact, she couldn't believe how many times people told her they've never worked with a female coordinator before. While flattered, she hopes other talented female stunt coordinators can reach the blockbuster plateau she's been able to achieve. We're gonna be honest with you here. We didn't think that the Hulk needed a stunt double. Not because the Hulk is awesome and would likely think stunt doubles to be puny, but because he's a CGI entity. That being said, the Hulk, or rather Mark Ruffalo, totally has a stunt double, and his name is Lloyd Bateman. Hulk may have been around for a while, but Bateman's only been working as the Hulk during Infinity War and Endgame. Usually when Bateman is doing stunts, he's doing lots of hand-to-hand fighting in light clothing, but with the Hulk's fight against Thanos, for instance, he not only needed all the motion capture gear, but needed to be mobile as well. Bateman talked about how all the padding made him feel safe from big blows, but also that it made things tricky having extra bits of foam in order to visualize Hulk's true size. Thankfully, since he only doubled as the Hulk, he didn't need to put on a fake head stake like Brolin had to for Thanos. Star-Lord's costume may not be as iconic as some of the other characters in the MCU, but that doesn't mean he's without anything iconic. The signature mask has become one of the most recognizable masks in pop culture. Star-Lord's mask is so cool, and yet it is his mask that Chris Romrell states is the worst part about doubling for Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. Romrell would go so far as to call the mask horrendous. Why is that, you might be wondering? Well, Chris Pratt, being the expensive movie star, had a custom mask with a fan and vent to keep him cool, but the stunt mask lacks this, as it be extra money spent. He said that his mask felt like a clunky Power Rangers mask with tiny slits in it to breathe, but once he starts doing the action, he loses all oxygen and it starts to get pretty intense in there. Then there's the eyes, which are pressed against his face and tend to fog up. No wonder Romrell broke 3 masks. Maybe Marvel should have paid for the good stuff for Romrell too. If you haven't seen Extraction, Chris Hemsworth's latest flick on Netflix directed by Sam Hargrave, you should if you're a fan of action movies. What's great is that Hemsworth actually had to do a lot of his own stunts due to the nature of the wide, long shots. The same can't be said about the MCU though, where Bobby Holland comes in to do the heavy lifting for his Asgardian counterpart. Holland also doubles for Hemsworth outside of the MCU as well, so he's very close to him. But because Hemsworth is always in such peak physical form, Holland has to be on his A game constantly to stay on Chris's level. Holland would state that just trying to maintain the Hemsworth workout and diet was a job in itself. Holland also stated that the fat suit used in Endgame made life quite difficult. They filmed in Atlanta, and Holland had the suit, the harness, the costume, and the stunt pads on. In other words, he was roasting. Sam Hargrave seems to be all over the place right now thanks to the success of his movie Extraction, which stars Chris Hemsworth. Hargraves was a stunt double and stunt coordinator on many MCU films dating back to the first Avengers movie, where he doubled as Captain America. By the time Endgame came around, he was working behind the camera as second unit director and choreographing the fights. His favorite scene that he's helped bring to life thus far, though, brings him full circle, as it was the fight between the two Captain Americas. Sam Hargrave shaved off his signature beard to return to the action for this one, opting to play the prime Captain America. He would be fighting against his brother Daniel, who normally doubles for Chris Evans. The two brothers have been into filming their stunts since they were 10 and 7, so this was full circle for them as the two brothers got to perform a stunt scene together in the most epic Marvel movie to date. Sam also got to film his friend Chris Evans, as the scene wasn't entirely done with stunt doubles, so yes, it was Chris Evans' bud. But enough about that. Those are some fun little stories from behind the scenes of the MCU. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in your playlist every day. Thanks for watching.